Elon Musk, I mean, the name just brings to mind like electric cars, rockets blasting off into space. Now it's even all these discussions about where social media is headed. It's a lot to keep up with.
It really is. Feels like he's everywhere doing everything.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're cutting through all the noise, right? Taking a deep dive into the history of Elon Musk, trying to figure out what were the big moments, the things that really shaped him into the person we see now.
I like that, like finding the foundational pieces, the blueprint of Elon Musk. And we've got a ton of information to work with here. This look at his life and career is super in-depth.
It is. We've got everything from his early life in South Africa to building software companies to space exploration, electric cars, brain interfaces, even getting involved in politics now. It's a huge story.
No kidding.
So our goal, as always, is to wade through all of this, right? And find those crucial turning points, the things that really set his path. We want to give you a clear picture of his journey, all the context, the insights, but without, like, drowning you in detail.
Yeah, totally. Think of it like the essential Elon Musk roadmap.
Exactly. So let's go back to the beginning. Elon Musk was born on June 28th, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa.
Right. And his family was. Well, by most accounts, they were pretty wealthy. His mom is Mae Musk, the model. You've probably seen her around.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And his dad is Elon Musk.
And there's been a lot of talk about the whole source of their wealth, especially Errol's involvement with emerald mines.
Yeah, for sure. At first, both Elon and Errol talked about him owning part of an emerald mine in Zambia. But more recently, Errol clarified that it was more like he got a share of emeralds from a few smaller mines. This was in 2023, so maybe not direct ownership, but still clearly a profitable deal.
Definitely sounds like it.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting, Errol was also in local politics, elected to the Pretoria City Council. He was part of an anti-apartheid party. Actually said his kids shared those views.
Interesting. Okay, so after his parents divorced in 1980, Elon decided to live mostly with his dad. But he said later that he really regretted that choice, and they ended up becoming estranged. He's talked about some tough times during those years, like going to this wilderness school that he described as, get this, a paramilitary Lord of the Flies.
Whoa.
Yeah. And apparently bullying was like a normal thing there.
Yikes.
Yeah, not a great situation. And there's this one really disturbing incident he's talked about. After a fight, he was thrown down some concrete stairs and beaten so badly he ended up in the hospital.
That's awful.
It is. It really paints a picture of a pretty rough adolescence, you know? And to make things even more complicated, there are different stories about what happened after he got out of the hospital.
Oh, how so?
Well, Elon said his dad was really harsh with him when he came home, but Errol denies that. He said the other kid involved had just lost his own dad to suicide, and that Elon had been, like, verbally abusive to him. Errol said that was kind of a pattern with Elon.
Huh. So it sounds like a really strained and complex relationship with his dad from the very beginning.
Yeah, for sure. But even with all that going on, Elon was developing this incredible intellectual curiosity, like from a really young age. He was a total bookworm.
What kind of stuff was he into?
Well, he's mentioned The Lord of the Rings, the Foundation series, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You know, those really big, imaginative stories, often with futuristic elements.
Yeah, I could see that. It makes you wonder if those sparked his own ambitions, his vision for the future.
Totally. Like, you can almost see the seeds of SpaceX and Neuralink being planted right there.
Right, those early imaginative journeys.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just passively reading these stories. He was also super into computers and video games. I mean, at 10 years old, he taught himself computer programming using just the manual for a Commodore VIC-20.
Wow, that kind of self-directed learning, that technical skill, that young. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it didn't take him long to put those skills to use. By 12, he'd created his own video game written in BASIC. It was called Blastar, and he sold it to PC and Office Technology magazine for like $500.
Yeah. So that's his first entrepreneurial venture, right?
No.
At 12 years old.
Yep. It shows not just the technical side, but also that early business sense. That kind of win, even if it wasn't a ton of money, probably gave him a big confidence boost. Validated his ability to create something and actually make money from it.
I bet. Okay, so then what about his actual schooling in South Africa?
Well, he went to a few different schools. Waterkloof House Preparatory School, Bryanston High School, and then he graduated from Pretoria Boys High School. Seems like he was a good student, but maybe not, like a superstar.
Gotcha. Any details on that?
Yeah, we even have specific grades, like he got a 61 in Afrikaans and a B on his senior math certification.
Huh, interesting. It's kind of cool to see those little details, right? It gives you a more complete picture.
Totally. And what's really interesting is why he left South Africa.
Yeah, why was that?
Mostly to avoid mandatory military service under the apartheid regime. And remember, his dad was involved in anti-apartheid politics, so it kind of fits with the family's views. Plus, his mom, being Canadian, meant he could get a Canadian passport, which would make it easier to eventually immigrate to the U.S., which was his long-term plan. He even spent about 5 months at the University of Pretoria while waiting for that passport.
So there was a clear strategy there, even at that age. Get out of South Africa, go to the U.S.
Yep. So in 1989, he makes that move to Canada. Big stepping stone. He goes on to get his BA and BS degrees from the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay, so solid academic background.
Right. And then he sets his sights on California, the heart of all the tech stuff, ready to start building his business career.
And build he did.
Yeah.
1995, he co-founds his first software company, Zip2.
Yeah, might not be a name everyone remembers now, but it was a big deal at the time. They provided online city guides for newspapers. Maybe not as glamorous as rockets and electric cars, but it gave him that crucial experience of building and running a tech company.
Right, building those foundational skills. And it paid off because they ended up selling Zip2 in 1999.
Exactly. So that sale did two things. One, it kind of proved that his entrepreneurial instincts were right on. And two, it gave him a bunch of capital to work with. And that was the fuel he needed for all the big, ambitious projects he had coming up.
Which brings us to, 1999? He co-founds X.com.
Yep, an online payment company.
That name sounds familiar, but in a different context now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Back then, it was all about changing how internet banking worked. And the really interesting part is it merged with another company, and that led to the creation of PayPal.
Ah, PayPal.
Yeah.
Now that's a name everyone knows.
Totally. And PayPal, of course, just blew up, became the dominant force in online payments. And then in 2002, eBay bought it for crazy $1.5 billion. As a co-founder and major shareholder, Musk walked away with a massive fortune.
So now he's got serious money to play with. What does he do with it?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Instead of going the usual route, investing in more traditional businesses, he decides to take on these massive, seemingly impossible challenges.
This is where it all starts to get extraordinary.
Yeah, for sure. May 2002, he founds SpaceX. He pours in $100 million of his own money and becomes CEO and chief engineer. I mean, that's not just a business decision. It's a total commitment to the future of space travel.
That's like he's saying, I'm putting all my chips on this.
Exactly. And his interest in space actually started way earlier with the Mars Society. He even looked into funding a project to send a little greenhouse to Mars.
Seriously?
Yeah. And then there's the famous story about him going to Russia multiple times trying to buy intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Like the nuclear missiles?
Yep. He wanted to repurpose them into rockets. And when that didn't work out, he thought, okay, I'll just start my own company and build more affordable rockets.
That's some serious problem solving. He hits a roadblock and decides to create a whole new path.
Right. It really shapes his mindset. And SpaceX has absolutely transformed the space industry. They've led the way with reusable rockets, which has made space travel way cheaper.
Yeah, that's been huge. It's not just about saving money on launches. It changes the whole game for exploring and using space commercially.
Totally. And then there's Starlink.
Oh, yeah, that massive satellite internet project.
Right. They want to give the entire world access to the internet. That could be a game changer for so many people.
Absolutely. Okay, so SpaceX is up and running. What's next on the Elon Musk agenda?
Well, in 2004, he makes another big move. He becomes an early investor in Tesla, Inc.
Tesla. So this is before they were, like, the household name they are now.
Yeah. And he takes over as CEO and product architect in 2008 when most people still thought electric cars were, a bit of a fringe idea.
Right. It wasn't like the mainstream thing it is now.
Exactly. But his vision wasn't just about making electric cars. It was about making them cool, high performance, the kind of car that could compete with gas-powered cars and eventually replace them altogether.
And they definitely delivered on that. I mean, they started with the Roadster in 2008, really showed that an electric car could be stylish and powerful. Importantly, they made the decision to use lithium-ion batteries for their cars, which were then scaled for mass production.
Yep. And then they just kept rolling out these amazing EVs, one after another. The Model S in 2012, which really changed how people thought about luxury electric cars. Then the Model X in 2015 with that creative falcon wing door design.
Oh, yeah, that was wild.
The Model 3 in 2017, which was aimed at the mass market, a big step towards making electric cars more affordable. the Model Y in 2020, which was their SUV, and of course the Cybertruck, which finally arrived in 2023 after years of anticipation. That thing is like something out of a sci-fi movie.
So he's trying to make electric cars cool, one model at a time.
Exactly. He wants to electrify the world's transportation, and he's not afraid to push the boundaries of design and technology to do it.
But it hasn't all been smooth sailing, right? I mean, there was that whole thing with the SEC in 2020.
Yeah, in May 2020, he had to step down as chairman of the board at Tesla. It was part of a settlement with the SEC over a tweet he made about taking the company private. He said he had the funding secured, but it turned out, well, not so much. He stayed on as CEO, though. And the growth of Tesla has been honestly incredible. They've built these massive gigafactories to make batteries in cars. They had their IPO in 2010. By the summer of 2020, they were the most valuable car company in the world. They got added to the S&P 500 index. And then in October 2021, they hit $1 trillion market cap. It's a crazy success story.
Absolutely. And his whole thing with sustainable energy goes beyond just Tesla's cars.
Yeah, good point. Back in 2006, he came up with the idea for Solar City and provided the initial funding. It was founded by his cousins.
It's a bit of a family affair.
Yeah. And by 2013, they were the second biggest solar power systems provider in the U.S. He was also behind this huge production facility in Buffalo, New York, working with Panasonic for a while. That ended up becoming part of Tesla Energy.
So he's really pushing for renewable energy on multiple fronts.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, he's already a major player in space exploration and the electric vehicle market.
Right, two huge industries. You'd think that'd be enough for one person.
You'd think so, but his ambition just keeps going. He's always looking for the next big thing, something that could really change the world.
Like what?
Well, in 2016, he co-founds Neuralink, invests another $100 million. This time, the goal is to create a direct interface between the human brain and AI.
Whoa. Now that's getting into some serious sci-fi territory.
Right. The potential applications are mind-blowing. Enhance memory, communicate with computers directly, even develop treatments for things like paralysis and Parkinson's disease.
I mean, if they can pull it off, it would be revolutionary. But what's the progress been like?
It's been closely watched, and there have been some ethical concerns, especially about their animal testing. They were using macaque monkeys in their research, and that led to a federal investigation over potential animal welfare violations.
Ah, right. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and there was that video they released of a monkey playing Pong using only a brain implant. It was pretty amazing to see, but it also sparked a lot of debate about how far we should go with animal testing.
For sure. Those are important conversations to have.
Definitely. And then there's the Boring Company, which he launched in 2017. The idea there is to solve traffic congestion by building tunnels. Pretty simple concept, but a huge engineering challenge.
Yeah, trying to move traffic underground. Sounds ambitious, but also kind of makes sense.
Right. They've done some interesting projects, like a test tunnel in LA and some projects in Las Vegas for rapid transit around convention centers. They even talked about maybe using Dogecoin for payments in their systems.
Oh, wow. Bringing in the crypto angle.
Yep. But some of their bigger plans, like this West Side Tunnel project in LA, they ended up dropping those. So it seems like the Boring Company is still figuring things out, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, and then we get to X Corp, or as most people probably still think of it, Twitter. I know he's been interested in that for a while, right?
Yeah. He first started talking about Twitter back in 2017. He was concerned about their commitment to free speech.
Right. And by 2022, he'd become the biggest shareholder in Twitter.
Yep. He'd bought up a 9.2% stake. That was the start of a whole saga.
A saga is right. That whole acquisition thing was wild.
Totally. He made an offer to buy the whole company. They reached an agreement. Then he seemed to back out. There were lawsuits. It was all over the news. But in the end, he bought Twitter in October 2022 for about $44 billion.
So he finally got what he wanted. And then what?
Then he wasted no time making changes. He fired several top executives, including the CEO, and took over himself.
Wow, just like that.
Yep. And then came the big changes. The blue check subscription, massive layoffs, changes to content moderation.
That's the part that really got people talking, right?
Yeah, for sure. Some people said these changes led to more hate speech on the platform. There was also that whole thing where he released internal documents about the Hunter Biden laptop controversy.
That was a big story.
It was. He eventually stepped down as CEO, but he's still heavily involved as the executive chairman and chief technology officer. So Twitter, or X Corp, it's been a very different place since he took over.
Definitely a lot of disruption there. Okay, so apart from all these big, high-profile ventures, What else has he been involved in?
Well, he's also talked about and even started working on some other really ambitious futuristic ideas.
Like what?
Well, in 2013, he unveiled this concept called the Hyperloop.
The Hyperloop, yeah. That was supposed to be like super fast transportation in tubes, right?
Exactly. Passengers would travel in pods through these vacuum tubes going between cities like LA and San Francisco much faster and potentially cheaper than anything we have now. It got people excited, but we haven't seen any full-scale Hyperloop systems operating yet.
Yeah, it's still very much in the conceptual phase.
Right. And then there's his whole involvement with AI, which has been, well, kind of all over the place. Well, in December 2015, he co-founded OpenAI, which was supposed to be this nonprofit focused on developing artificial general intelligence, AGI, safely and for the benefit of humanity. He pledged a bunch of funding, but apparently didn't donate as much as he initially said he would.
Right.
And then he left the board in 2018.
Okay, so a bit of a mixed bag there.
Yeah. And then fast forward to July 2023, he launches his own AI company, XAI. He's basically setting it up as a competitor to ChatGPT, which is OpenAI's big success. He got funding from a lot of the same investors who are backing SpaceX and Tesla, and he's hired people away from Google and OpenAI.
So it seems like he's really determined to be a major player in the AI world, but he's not afraid to switch things up.
Exactly. Okay, so let's shift gears a little and talk about his political activities and his public persona, because he's definitely not your typical CEO who stays out of the political spotlight.
Yeah, he seems to enjoy being in the public eye, and he's not shy about sharing his opinions.
For sure. And while he's donated to both Democrats and Republicans in the past, there's been a clear shift towards supporting Republicans and their causes since around 2022.
Interesting. What kinds of candidates has he supported?
Well, over the years, he's publicly endorsed people like Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Andrew Yang, Ron DeSantis. So a pretty diverse range. He was also very vocal against the Build Back Better Act and has given a lot of money to conservative PACs. But he's also used his X platform to host discussions with candidates from both parties using the X Spaces feature.
So he's definitely engaging with politics in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and his views on international relations have also gotten a lot of attention and sometimes controversy. He's criticized Israel's actions in Gaza, but also praised China for its economic development and climate change progress. He's even suggested some ideas for how Taiwan and China could manage their relationship. And after Russia invaded Ukraine, he supported Ukraine, but also suggested holding referendums in the occupied territories, which was a pretty controversial idea.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from complex and controversial topics. And he's had his own share of legal issues too, right?
Yeah, definitely. The SEC lawsuit in 2018 over that funding-secured tweet about taking Tesla private was a big one. He ended up settling, paying fines, stepping down as chairman of Tesla. But later, a shareholder lawsuit about the same tweet found him not liable. And he's even said he doesn't regret the tweet. So he definitely has a bit of a defiant streak.
Sounds like it. Okay, so shifting to his personal life a bit, what's the story there?
Well, he became a U.S. citizen in 2002. He lived in California for a long time, but moved to Texas in 2020, saying he felt California had become complacent. He's also publicly said that he believes he has Asperger's syndrome. And he's been open about having back pain and surgeries and this really bad case of malaria he got back in 2000, which he said almost killed him.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about the malaria.
Yeah. And there have been reports about him using ketamine prescribed by his doctor to treat depression. More recently, there's been some unconfirmed media speculation about him using other drugs, which he's responded to by saying he hasn't tested positive for any illegal substances.
It seems like his personal life is constantly under scrutiny.
Definitely. And his relationships and his big family have also been a big focus for the media. He's had 14 kids with different partners, 5 with his first wife, Justine Wilson.
5 kids, wow.
Yeah. And he married and divorced Tallulah Riley twice. He's got 3 kids with the musician Grimes, who have some pretty unique names. And he reportedly has twins and a 4th child with Siobhan Zillis, who's a top executive at Neuralink. Sadly, his first child with Justine Wilson died as a baby. His eldest twin with Justine has also publicly come out as the trans woman and legally changed her name, saying she doesn't want to be associated with him anymore. And he's had some public custody battles with Grimes. It's definitely a complicated family situation.
It sounds like it. So what about his wealth? I mean, he's become one of the richest people on the planet.
Yeah, his rise has been pretty crazy. He first showed up on the Forbes billionaires list in 2012, and now he's the wealthiest person in the world. As of March 2025, his estimated net worth is around $330 billion. He even went over $400 billion for a while in late 2024.
That's an insane amount of money.
It is. He's also the president of the Musk Foundation, which he started in 2001. They focus on things like renewable energy, space exploration, pediatric research, and making sure AI is developed safely. A lot of their early work was donating to OpenAI, but there's been some discussion about how much they actually give away compared to how much money they have, and there was some controversy about a big donation he promised to solve world hunger, which didn't quite happen as planned.
Huh, interesting. So how would you sum up his public image? It seems pretty complex.
Oh, it definitely is. He's this incredibly influential figure across so many different industries. Some people have even called him an American oligarch. And after Trump got reelected, people started jokingly calling him President Musk or co-president because he was so involved with the transition and seemed to have so much influence.
That's pretty wild.
It is. He's also won a ton of awards for his contributions to technology and innovation. He's got awards from AIA, FAI, the Royal Aeronautical Society, an honorary doctorate from Yale. He's an honorary member of IEE, and he's a fellow of the Royal Society and the National Academy of Engineering. Time magazine named him Person of the Year in 2021.
So he's definitely racking up the accolades.
Yeah. And he's even had an impact on pop culture. He was a big inspiration for Tony Stark in the Iron Man movies, and he's made cameos in movies and TV shows like Iron Man 2, The Simpsons, The Big Bang Theory, and Rick and Morty.
So he's gone from being a tech entrepreneur to a bit of a celebrity.
For sure. And now, for the latest twist, since January 2025, he's actually got a formal role in the U.S. government.
Wait, seriously?
Yep. He's a senior advisor to President Trump, and he's also basically the head of this new Department of Government Efficiency, which they call DOGE for short. It's a pretty unprecedented move for someone like him to have this kind of direct political influence.
Wow, so he's gone from building rockets to being in the White House.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. So looking back at everything we've covered, it's clear that Elon Musk has had this incredibly unique and impactful life.
Definitely. From his early days in South Africa with all those challenges and that intellectual spark to becoming the serial entrepreneur who's changed how we think about things like online payments, space travel, and electric cars. It's a story of huge ambition and taking on problems that most people wouldn't even dream of tackling.
And now he's this global figure with immense power in tech, business, and increasingly politics.
Exactly. And having this understanding of his history, seeing all the twists and turns, it's essential for making sense of all the news about him and trying to figure out what he might do next. It gives you, the listener, that crucial context that's so often missing from the headlines.
Totally agree. So here's something to think about. Given this incredible path, from a young programmer with big dreams to this global force who's now shaping government policy, what do you think the next chapter holds for Elon Musk? And what might the long-term impact be of someone like him with his disruptive vision operating at this level of power? Those are big questions, but definitely worth considering.
Definitely food for thought.